Stalingrad Inferno on the Volga is a solitaire game that puts you in charge of German forces trying to wrest control of the city from the Soviets. But if you have others who want to play the game, there are 3 different modes you could try. If you have one friend over and both of you like getting along, you can play in the co-op mode. One player commands the German 6th Army, or yellow units, while the other commands the 4th Panzer Army, or blue units. Under the co-op rules, yellow and blue units may not be stacked, although white units may be stacked with either yellow or blue. Stacks containing a single blue unit are considered a blue stack, and a yellow stack may consist of one yellow unit. A stack of white units is not controlled by either player until a yellow or blue unit moves into the stack. The yellow player plays the first turn, then alternates with the blue player. The starting German support cards begin under the yellow player's control, and that player will also roll for defending stacks of white units. All other support cards belong to the player who draws them. Only that player can use them. German leader cards affect both players once they are in play, no matter who drew them. Plus, the player may choose one of the 5 German actions on their respective turn. Reinforcing units are distributed and deployed as normal, with white units being deployed in the spawn hexes that correspond to the player who called for the reinforcements. When hexes are fully stacked, white units may be deployed into other players' spawn hexes. The only way both German players cooperate in game turns is during a deliberate attack on the same target. This can include attack support from a white stack if at least one other stack belonging to the active German player participates. In addition to the standard victory conditions, the winning player is determined by who controls the most Soviet spawn hexes. If you have a friend over and you enjoy not getting along, then this 1 versus 1 mode may be for you. One player controls the Germans while the other controls the Soviets. The German player will use the rules for solo or standard game mode, while the Soviet player will use the following rules. During the Soviet turn, check the Soviet top stacked hex or hexes with the largest number of units. Count the number of such hexes and Soviet-controlled spawn hexes. If the number of top stacked hexes is greater than the number of Soviet-controlled Soviet spawn hexes, then the Soviet player must perform a spawn action. If the number is equal or below, the Soviet player may perform a move or draw action. Spawn actions are described on page 11 of the solo or standard mode in the rulebook. If it is not possible for the Soviets to conduct a spawn action, they will draw a card instead. While performing a movement action, the Soviet player must move a single unit from each top stacked hex into a valid adjacent hex. The units in order of movement are chosen by the Soviet player. During the movement phase, a top stacked hex can declare a hasty attack into an adjacent hex that contains a German stack. If Chukov is in play, it is a deliberate attack, and all adjacent Soviet stacks must attack as well. When performing a draw action, the Soviet player does not move any unit from any hex. The card is drawn and the Soviet player's turn will end. The combat sequence is the same as a solo mode with 2 exceptions. The Soviet player is not forced to play a card during combat, and they can choose which card they want to play. In this mode, 2 players control the German forces and the other player controls the Soviets. The German player will use the co-op rules while the Soviet player uses the 1 versus 1 rule. And that is how you use the different player modes for Stalingrad Inferno on the Volga. Thanks for watching. The Seek Out and Play YouTube channel offers several videos on the Vento Nuovo line of games. Plus, you can keep up with the latest news by visiting our Facebook and Twitter pages. And if you want to support the channel, we have a link to our Patreon page below. And I will see you next Wednesday.